Hi everyone! In today's exciting video, I'll show you the truly modern and remarkable reincarnation of the classic Csepel Camping bicycles. Ta-ta-ta-da! For those viewers who aren't Hungarian and don't know what a Csepel Camping bicycle is, let me briefly explain that it was a pretty iconic bicycle in Hungary. Roughly 1 million units were sold. Unfortunately, its designer passed away this year at around 90 years old, if I remember correctly. And this particular bicycle was essentially built upon the very same fundamental principles as today's modern electric 20-inch bikes. That is to say, it was remarkably light, quite small, and could be easily transported within the confines of a small car, and well, it was also very cheap. So the main point is that the Csepel Camping bicycle was indeed a bike specifically made according to the prevailing spirit of the times back then. People typically drove relatively small socialist cars, which often came with rather small trunks, and they consequently needed a bicycle that could conveniently fit into these compact small cars so they could readily take it with them on their vacations. Well, the Csepel Camping bicycle was exactly like that, since it weighed less than 20 kilos. It had 20-inch wheels, a foldable frame, so it was just right for these purposes. Just like their modern-day reincarnations, which also perfectly fit the bill, since these particular bikes are quite small, incredibly lightweight, conveniently foldable, and of course not too expensive at all. In this particular test, I am going to introduce you to this rather interesting bicycle, which is specifically called the SINOHON C20. Of course, it is an electric bicycle, and naturally, it is a Chinese electric bicycle. It possesses a couple of truly interesting and notable features, especially considering the fact that, in terms of its overall use and its visual appearance, it somewhat closely resembles the classic Csepel Camping bikes. So in this video, first we'll do the unboxing and assembly, then I'll go over the specifications, show you the bike from the outside, and finally share my experiences, just like in every video of this kind. Let's start with the assembly and unboxing. The bike arrives in a relatively compact and surprisingly small box, primarily because only the front wheel needs to be carefully removed, and that is precisely what we need to meticulously assemble. So the entire assembly process involves the careful installation of the front wheel, securely attaching the pedals, precisely putting the comfortable seat in its designated place, fitting the front mudguard, connecting the front light, and that's pretty much all there is to it, making the setup quite straightforward. Once the bike is assembled, all that's left is to adjust the brakes. This isn't a big deal either, and you also need to inflate the tires, check that everything works, and if it does, you can set off and go on your first bike ride. Okay, so let's take a look at the specifications. It's not too complicated, since this is a completely typical 20-inch bike, with the interesting feature that the battery is located behind the seat post, not built into the frame. The tire width is about 6 centimeters, so it's not a fat tire, but it's not very thin either. It has a 7-speed Shimano SIS shifter. This Tourney gear set is actually entry-level. I think everyone who has already come across these cheaper Chinese bikes is quite well familiar with them. We have disc brakes at the front and rear, naturally mechanical disc brakes. The motor is seamlessly built into the rear hub, and it's a robust 250 watts. Furthermore, the accompanying battery is a 36-volt unit with a substantial capacity of 18.18 amp-hours, which means it can precisely deliver an impressive 648 watt-hours. Of course, the handlebar height and seat height are adjustable, but these aren't really the most important features of this bicycle. What truly matters is that this isn't a pedal sensor bike, but rather one with a torque sensor. And on top of that, we're not even talking about a basic torque sensor bike, because this bicycle actually has dual-sided torque sensors. This means it can separately monitor and measure the torque from both your right and left leg. This is quite unique, especially considering that this is an inexpensive bicycle. Let me say it again, that's pretty much everything I needed to say about it. So now we'll take a look at the bike from the outside, and then I'll quickly share my experiences. Okay, so let's check out the bike from the outside, as I promised to show it to you. So as I mentioned, this is a camping-style bicycle. The frame conveniently folds in the middle, just like the old camping bikes used to do. The wheels are 20 inches in diameter, just like on the classic old camping bikes. As I said, it has a 7-speed gear system. This is the usual CS Shimano set, so we're talking about a very entry-level component. On the other side, you can see the disc brakes. As I mentioned, they're mechanical, and the same type of mechanical disc brake is on the front as well. We get a very sturdy and robust luggage rack, and what's particularly interesting to note is that the battery is conveniently located behind the seat tube. The big advantage of this is that it's much easier to remove and take it up to your apartment for charging than batteries that are built into the frame. All we have to do is lift the seat, unlock the latch with the key, flip up the lever, and remove the battery. What I really don't like about this particular situation is that if you happen to lock the latch and then power on the bike, you simply cannot remove the key. It stays in there even while you're riding the bike. One good thing, though, is that if you go to the store, you can turn the key to off, and then you can take it out. The bike is locked, the electrical system doesn't work, but you also can't remove the battery from its place. Okay, what else is there? Well, if I carefully fold the seat back, you can clearly see that we have a functional rear light and a prominent front light. If I then turn on the dashboard display, you can conveniently use this specific switch located here to effortlessly turn the light on and off, and you can also smoothly operate the integrated turn signals because we have indicators as well. Of course, the turn signal is pretty much useless since it's just a small, rather dim yellow LED blinking here, which other drivers likely won't see at all. So if you intend to turn, I strongly suggest you signal your intention with a clear and visible hand gesture. Don't rely on the indicator because you could die. The overall light quality is somewhat better now. It has a fairly normal and consistently good brightness, and the brake light is also quite decent and effective in its performance. This one is probably visible, so the brake light can definitely be considered good, but the indicator is absolutely not. The front light is a completely standard headlamp. It has relatively good brightness, so you can use it even in the dark. The big advantage of these lights is that they're connected to the electrical system, and since they're wired in, you don't need batteries or have to keep charging an accumulator. And as I mentioned, it can be switched on from the handlebars through this set of buttons. Speaking of the handlebars, what else can we find on them? We find the instrument cluster, which is a pretty simple and straightforward thing. As you can clearly see, there really isn't much to look at on its rather minimalist display. You can easily adjust the level of assistance in 5 distinct steps, and you can also conveniently switch between displaying miles per hour and kilometers per hour. You can readily see the precise distance traveled and the current speed. On the other side, we prominently see the dedicated switch for the advanced Shimano SIS gear system. Of course, there are brake levers on both of the sides, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Another rather interesting thing to note is that you can also easily install a throttle grip on this particular side. This is actually a component thoughtfully provided by the manufacturer. I personally usually don't install it, primarily because if you do, then it effectively ceases to be an electric bicycle, but rather it transforms into an electric moped. If you genuinely want to use the throttle function, all you simply have to do is connect it to this specific connector, carefully plug it in, and then you will be fully able to use the bike with the throttle. You don't have to pedal to move forward. What other interesting things are there? Well, there aren't many left now. We have a front suspension fork. The front suspension fork is a really simple piece. It's a basic spring shock. You can't lock it or adjust its stiffness, but it still works relatively well. It's very important that it already comes equipped with both front and rear mudguards, so you absolutely do not have to purchase those separately. If you buy the bike, you don't need to spend extra money on it later, because the manufacturer includes them. The seat is very good, really pleasant, comfortable, and soft. But I have to say, with this seat, I definitely wouldn't go on a tour around Lake Balaton. And not just because of the seat, but also because we're talking about a 20-inch bike, and I wouldn't really want to ride around Lake Balaton on this. And now I'd just like to draw your attention to one more thing, the rear rack, which is incredibly strong and welded directly onto the frame. This robust and durable bike will withstand virtually anything you throw at it. And also you can easily mount a versatile front rack on this bike as well, since you can readily find the dedicated mounting points for the front rack right here on the frame. So you can truly and effectively turn this bike into a remarkably great shopping bike. And with that, we can pretty much comprehensively wrap up this detailed exterior overview. And then I can talk a bit more about what it was genuinely like to extensively use this bike. Let's start with things like the dashboard, which, as you've seen, is not a particularly complicated thing. Unfortunately, it's not very visible in sunlight, but it's still just about acceptable. So it's somewhere halfway between really bad and really good. I don't really have too many problems with the brakes, since this isn't a particularly fast bike. It's not a big bike, it's light, and these disc brakes have proven to be completely sufficient for it. As I mentioned, the shock absorber does its job relatively well. The front light does its job well, the rear light and the brake light do their job well, but the turn signal does not do its job well. It can be folded up into a very small space, since you can remove or lower the seat, adjust the handlebar height, fold down the handlebars, and fold the frame as well, so you'll be able to take it with you on vacation even in a relatively small car. But these are basic things. I don't think that's what you're curious about either, but rather how the bike performs in everyday use. Well, there are good things and bad things too. The good thing is definitely the torque sensor, which works incredibly smoothly, so I don't think anyone will have complaints about that. The 5 adjustable assist levels are really great because on a normal flat road you'll be able to get by with level 1. You can go a long way with it, the battery will be enough for that, but if you hit the steeper hill, you can switch to level 5 and you'll still be able to get up there. The manufacturer says you can climb a 10-degree incline with it. I say that if your legs are strong, you can climb even more than that, but if they're weak, you'll manage less. It delivers the power very smoothly, it doesn't try to shoot out from under you. So this bike has really become a very, very refined machine in terms of its drive system. What's bad about it? Well, honestly, there isn't really much to say. It's essentially like a camping bike. So this is a reincarnation of a Csepel Camping Bike. As I previously said, with this bike, just like with a camping bike, you'll truly never go fast. Even though it has gears, the gear ratio only allows for a maximum speed of approximately 15 or 16 kilometers per hour. With normal, comfortable pedaling, you can go like crazy, you can pedal like crazy, and maybe you'll even be able to reach 20. The speed is factory limited to 25 kilometers per hour, but I'm telling you, without a tailwind or a downhill, you probably won't reach that. And now you might ask why I keep mentioning the Csepel Camping bicycle, since there are plenty of similar bikes out there, and I've ridden plenty of similar bikes myself. But when I first got on this particular bicycle, I was struck by a strong sense of déjà vu that I couldn't quite place. And it took me a few moments to truly realize that the last time I felt this way was on a camping bike when I was vacationing by the beautiful Lake Balaton, riding leisurely down to the beach in flip-flops with a towel draped around my neck. And that's the feeling that came back to me with this bike. I cannot fully explain why this is the case. Perhaps it is the inherently low speed, or maybe it is the overall size, or it could even be the frame design. But I am inclined to believe that it is primarily the handlebar stem that is responsible for this particular characteristic. Csepel bikes didn't have handlebars like this, if you remember. They had those big, prominently curved handlebars, but even those were basically positioned quite vertically relative to the wheel. With this particular bike, you can also clearly see that there's still a slight angle here, but from this point, this part comes up completely and absolutely vertically, and because of that, steering this bicycle feels totally and remarkably different compared to an average standard 20-inch bicycle. So if you're around my age, or if there's a camping bike, a Csepel camping bicycle somewhere in your family and you've used it before, then you'll know exactly what it's like to ride this bike. The only real difference is that this particular one has a built-in battery and a powerful rear motor, so you absolutely won't wear yourself out riding it. Of course, this specific speed limit also inherently determines who this bike will be genuinely good for. Obviously, it's exclusively for those individuals who genuinely don't want to race around, for older people who simply want to go to the local store and are perhaps a little afraid of higher speeds, for those who don't want to die on a bicycle. After all, this bike doesn't want to take off on you. It doesn't give so much power or torque that it would become scary. It's very pleasant, very easy to use. It's very comfortable. So it's really for going to the store or to church. So it's a really simple piece. If you're actively looking for a versatile bike for this specific purpose, or perhaps for an older cherished relative, I can definitely recommend this particular one to you, primarily because the conveniently small wheels, the remarkable ease of use, and the impressively long range, all thanks to the highly efficient dual-sided torque sensor, collectively make this a truly great bike within its competitive category. If you liked it, you'll find the link to the written article below the video. You'll also find the purchase link and the coupon code that can make it cheaper. If you truly enjoyed this video, please choose one of the other two fantastic videos appearing right next to me and watch those as well. Then please come back, because I'll be back very soon with even more exciting scooter reviews this year. Until then, be good and enjoy the rest of the summer. Bye then!